from Respina for giving me this opportunity to give the talk on Studium Generale. So the task was for me to discuss the art of medicine in the Millennial era. Continued innovation is the best way to beat the competition. I had to read what is a Studium Generale. So I searched and I discovered it's an invitation to students. It was started in the 13th century in Europe. And many students from all over Europe, all over the world eventually, came together to listen to a master. So when I was preparing this lecture, I am honored by Respina because they think I am a master. But there are probably things I have mastered because I have been in medical practice for more than 35 years. So it made me look back when I was a medical student. You can see me? So, and you can see me there. I was maybe so many kilos less. But that is my medicine class. I come from the University of the Philippines. This is the State University of the Philippines. And at that time, to enter that medical school, you have to fight for your slot because they only give it for 100 students. Now it is for 140. As a state university, we are subsidized by the national government, and we have the cheapest tuition in the Philippines until now. And now, because of our president giving free tuition for college students, the students in the College of Medicine have no tuition. So those are my classmates up there. And this is us, okay, 35 years later. That's the College of Medicine. This is the Philippine General Hospital, which is the hospital where we train in. So that's history for me. Many pounds, kilos passed, but it is always good to look back, and I really had a hard time looking for some of the pictures. So, what is the art of medicine? It's really difficult. If you look at Google, and that's where I know a lot of you go to, and me, because it's the fastest way. During our time, when we needed to do some research, we had to go to the library, we had to go the cards, the 3x5 cards, we had to give our list to the person in the library, and we have to wait. There was no Xerox at that time, so we have to jot down, we have to copy. Now, you with one click, in 10 seconds, you have so many journals. So you are so lucky. But then, it made us really sit down because for me, reading a book is really a lot different than reading a Kindle, which I probably will not get used to. So, it's not really an art, but if you look at this painting, okay, you will see that in the past, tuberculosis or consumption was known or considered a desirable way to die because it was the sign of a delicate, sophisticated soul. Anyway, looking like a TB patient even became the height of Victorian fashion. They would make their faces look white. We want to be fair, but we don't want to be pale. So this is a different thing. Women would paint their veins so that it will be visible. Okay, it was the fashion then, in an attempt to bleach their skin and become as pale as possible. So this is immortalized in this painting. Susan Sontag argues that our current obsession with skinny models is a trend rooted in this consumption craze. So when we talk of medicine, what is it really? So we know it's the study of the human body, and it's the way of curing or making our patients well, or curing disease. But I will make a lot of quotations from William Osler, because I find his quotations and his teachings really apt to what I wanted to be when I wanted to be a physician. So medicine is a science. So remember, there is something behind what we do for patients who we treat for asthma and all of those diseases. But there are probabilities that what you are dealing with is not just an asthma, but something else. So it's not the painting that we showed, but it actually uses art to contribute to the clinician's practical reasoning. So when we talk of medicine, it's a didactic, it's a reasoning. You look at all the data in front of you, and then you come up with your final diagnosis. So it can help us to think inductively. So we need a solution to a single problem, and we'll apply it later on, because if you are in an epidemic, like some countries now are in an epidemic, that solution that you discovered, you can apply to the general population. So now they call it an outcome, okay? Now before, we called it a final diagnosis. So terms have changed a lot. Now, I got this from Google. It's not really what the art of medicine is, but it gave what the art of medicine is all about. And caring for the patient is one. So you have to show concern, and you need to give patients time. You have to not rush them. So there are many physicians now who have 40 patients in front of them, so they only have 2 hours in a clinic. That's impossible. You cannot finish. So you have to spend time, because that's the only way you can finally reach the diagnosis. So what we call bedside manners, and this is very important when you want to be a physician. And then nowadays we are reminded to use evidence-based medicine. We are fighting against alternative medicine. I don't know about your country, but in my country, we have to deal with fake doctors, the alternative medicine, and they seem to be more popular to the patients, especially those with malignancies or with terminal diseases. So we have to help every patient to acquire the best outcome they can for themselves by working with them, educating them, and this is important, coming up with a mutually agreed upon plan of action. So again, this is William Osler. I think, so what it's not showing in my computer. Can you have, because it's not showing here. So I had once a student who said he can study, he become a doctor without going to the wards. So he can read, he's very bright, he passed all his exams, but he was kicked out because he failed the 20% presence attendance in the university. So he said, I don't need to see a patient. I can just read and I will become a doctor. That's not possible. And Mr. William Auster says, he who studies medicine without books sails on uncharted sea. You need those because they came from Hippocrates. These were writings, proof of things that they have seen and discovered, and they want to pass it on. But he who studies medicine without patience does not go to sea at all. I think all of you at this point are already seeing patients, and you will realize that the best book in medicine is the patient that you are interviewing. And then you just have to refer to your textbook so that you will see whether they follow what our forefathers have discovered. But when we see patients who do not follow the textbook, that is when you are challenged. And this is why change has come, and change is going to keep coming, and it will come to a point where we have to revise. That's why Harrison has made the revisions not only every 5 years, now every year or every 2 years. So we have to be updated in our readings as well. So Osler is the father of medicine, and in Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, he was the one who started the clinical training for clerks, interns, and residents. And this is his favorite way of teaching bedside, and he is showing here how bedside manners have to be done. Okay, I post this because as a pulmonologist, I use my stethoscope a lot. Now there are many doctors now who don't use their stethoscopes. They just interview, they find out what's wrong, and I know this because some of my patients say, Doctor, what is that? Putting in my chest and my back. Oh, it's a stethoscope. How can you get diagnosis without examination of the patient? So the stethoscope, the first one was there. So here is just and it was actually Lenek who discovered this. Lenek was not allowed by his parents to be a doctor initially. He was actually already going into the arts, but after a while he told his father, I want to be a physician. And so that's how he helped in our diagnosis by inventing the stethoscope. So here, this is Lenek listening to the back of the patient. When a patient has bad stridor, you don't need a stethoscope, yes? But you want to find out if it is inspiratory and expiratory or either. So you still need your stethoscope to find out the location or whether the breath sounds are equal or not. Now, if you go outside, there is a stand there selling stethoscopes, and as it says here, for now, a well done, appropriate physical exam is still part of our physician's essential toolkit. We have the neck largely to thank for this, okay? Also the percussion and auscultation, but maybe they will be replaced by POCUS, electronic stethoscopes, which I tried using, but I probably will never be able to understand because the breath sounds, the cardiac sounds, the timing and everything is critical to what you will eventually find out in your patient. Do not be swayed by electronic because it is easier, because it is seems to be stronger. Maybe when I'm losing my hearing, maybe I will look for it, but it is not the same. It's never the same. So one thing that we need to remember when we are living in front of our patients is to listen. And I always say to my medical students, 75% of your diagnosis is from your history taking. You have to talk You have to listen. And remember, he is telling you the diagnosis already. He's leading you. So, communicating to the patient is really important. And once we are in front of a patient, you have to use your five senses. While you are talking, you're already examining your general survey, you're already seeing if he's tachypnic or pale or anasarcus, and then look at the legs. So, and then you hear. So I don't agree to relatives speaking for the patient unless they're deaf or dumb or cannot talk, because part of the interview when you hear the voice is already part of your diagnosis. Learn to feel and learn to smell, okay? When cervical carcinoma was very high incidence in our institution, when we go to the gynecology ward, you know that there is a lot of cervical CA there. Bronchiectasis, you can actually smell the breath. So these are the things that we need to do, and if you keep doing this, then you can become an expert. So I have three cases. First case is a 23-year-old female, okay? Her chief complaint was back pain. So she works in a spa, and she has been performing facials for a year or more. She was referred by her boss, who was a physician, and she says she had no occasional non-productive cough, no fever, no significant weight loss. The back pain was relieved at times, but it kept recurring. And she thought it was because she was bending all the time when she was doing facials. So she was referred by her dermatologist. Previous to this, she had consulted in government hospital twice in 2016, and only antibiotics were prescribed because the x-ray that they saw was interpreted as pneumonia. Okay? No request for an acid-fast smear was done, primarily because of her fault. She never went back, and she never had a cough, only back pain. So that pneumonia, when she was given antibiotics, she felt better, she failed to follow up. So when we admitted her, okay, so that is her chest x-ray, and this was in 2016, and this was in 2017. So if you're a pulmonologist, you will know that there's air there, and there's a density. This may well be a fibrothorax, but I cannot show you because the tracheal shadow is shifted to the abnormal side. And this was her 2017 x-ray. It did not change that much. So we admitted her because I could not hear any breath sounds. So the safest way is to do an ultrasound. And this was her ultrasound. She lent me this. She took a shot of her, the fluid that they aspirated. And this is the specimen, and you see that it is purulent. So right away, I had to do a chest tube thoracostomy because this is empyema thoracis. And the moment we inserted the tube, my surgeon stopped because he felt that there was something else other than an empyema. So this was the chest x-ray after the tube was inserted. And after we did repeat x-ray, we found that the patient had a gibus. So this is Pott's disease with empyema thoracis. And she was referred to our dog's clinic for treatment. She was given 1 year of treatment. And the moment we gave her the anti-TB, the back pain got better and the empyema improved. But definitely because of the 2-year duration of delay in treatment, then the chest x-ray did not really clear up. So this is her x-ray after the 12 months of treatment. The patient improved and no more back pain. And she gained weight. She was back after 6 months, again with back pain And so we sent her to the orthopedic surgeon for evaluation. So she's still being monitored. We have to monitor the patient up to 2 years to make sure that there will be no recurrence. The empyema has not recurred since. So why am I presenting this? She has been to a hospital several times and she was only complaining of back pain. But if you saw that first x-ray and made sure she followed up to be sure that her pneumonia has improved, then we all know that a non-resolving pneumonia where incidence of tuberculosis is high can be tuberculosis. So POTS disease is still prevalent in my country. And the back pain here, and she showed to the area where the givus was significant enough to make her complain of it time and again, but she was only taking analgesics. So the lesson here is when you have a patient with a non-resolving pneumonia, you have to pursue the patient's completion of medication, and if you are in an area where TB is prevalent or other diseases are prevalent, then you have to investigate that. Now, my second patient is a child, okay? He was brought to the mother because the mother is my patient. So he's 7-year-old, and she said, "Doctor, I want you to treat his asthma," because his main complaint was difficult breathing. So I said, so how long has he been having asthma, and does he wake up in the evening? No, he does not have any. He only has difficult breathing, but he does not cough, and at night he does not have any symptom. He sleeps well. And for me, unless proven otherwise, any cough or dyspnea in the evening is asthma unless proven otherwise in the children. In adults, it can be heart failure. So the thing that she was baffled was he was losing weight. And the PPD was done, it was negative, so the pediatrician signed him off as just pneumonia. And because the patient's cough improved with the initial antibiotic, so he didn't follow up. So he was given pneumonia treatment twice, admitted for the time, but this was the x-ray when I saw the patient. And it was a worsening pneumonia. It was actually not improving. So if you can see the x-ray, there are infiltrates also on the left, and there is destruction of the tissue on the right. So this patient I treated for tuberculosis, and this is him 6 months after. You can see he has gained weight. His chest x-ray actually cleared and became normal. So I thanks for that, okay? So after 2 years, he has followed up, he's still okay. And after that, and to prove to the mother that this was not really asthma, we did a spirometric exam, which was normal. So it is important for us to make decisions when patients are brought to us. And my example here is I had to interview many times. I had to talk with the mother, the relative, the patient. I had to do my examination. So both cases were negative for AFP. So they were not given medicines for tuberculosis because the guidelines in our DOTS center is if they're sputum negative, they're not tuberculosis. So we all know that TB is a great mimic. It can imitate any disease. So anything that will not improve with your first line of treatment, then maybe think TB. But then there were signs in our patient that this may be tuberculosis. But I was not prepared for the POTS disease in the female patient. Okay, so the next thing, that's the art of medicine. You have to listen, you have to look at your patient, get a good history. So the millennial area. I am a baby boomer, unfortunately. So I had to read up on the millennials. So I can see Mita, we are together, baby boomer Mita. The rest are millennials. How many are millennials here? Born 82 and up. My students are, I know. So my students from the University of the Philippines are there. Okay? So this was an issue in the time. So millennials are supposed to be me, me, me. All about me. I don't know if you will agree with me. But they're supposed to be the Generation Y or Gen Y. And demographically follow Generation X, which is in between the baby boomers, and now Generation Z. So these are the people born in the early 1980s up to the mid-90s and early 2000s as the ending birth years. So millennials are sometimes referred to as echo boomers due to a major surge in birth rates in the late 1980s and 1990s, and because millennials are often the children of the baby boomers. So I have 3 sons, and all of them are millennials. So the characteristics of millennials may vary by region. I don't know if they have the same characters as the millennials. I think they have a lot in common. They are generally marked by the coming of age in the information age, are comfortable in the use of digital technology and social media. Social media is a big factor now, even in the practice of medicine. But most millennials, there is optimism. Despite the fact that they have been exposed to 9/11, the Columbine killings, a lot of terrorist attacks, the tsunami, hurricanes, political, economic, and organizational influences, which include the 2000 election, the impeachment of the president, recession, and the fall of Enron. As kids, they were tightly scheduled. That's what I did to my children. Many would say overindulged, but I'm not a helicopter parent. I am a car parent. But anyway, as kids, they were products of reality TV, NCLB, iWorld, and Starbucks. So it's usually just a block away or a short walk away. So they are called Gen Y. So I got this from the internet because I just wanted to show you that the millennial is a new phase of healthcare. So this is a new era, and this is the baby boomer, and this is the millennial. So they are now the HCP, or called the healthcare providers, and they're increasingly diverse. They different nationalities, ethnicity, and a lot are women, and all of them are digitally focused. So many of the millennial doctors look at hospital employment as the new norm. They want to, more than half of them are in the hospital. Some of them have from paternalism to partnership. So this is the old healthcare hierarchy, and this is the new healthcare hierarchy. So you see this is a line, and this is a networking. So this is different, okay? Of course, the digital area, they're under tremendous pressure to know as much as they can, as quickly as they can, and to communicate that information to both their patients and their employers. So when we have a meeting like this, and there is a challenge to, okay, the first one who will text the right answer, I give up. I'm not going to beat a millennial at all. I'm just opening my phone, I have already sent the message, the answer. So that's not fair. But then, that's how they are, and we have to accept that. So how do these doctors work? Okay, so as I said, 49% now work in hospitals or medical groups, and 31% in private practice. It was the opposite before. That's why in the past, we had what we call a family doctor. And that family doctor would come to our house, visit us, or we go to the clinic, which is mostly his house as well. So it was more a relationship which was relatively, you would know your doctor, they would know every single person in your family. But now, because of too many patients in the hospitals, you may have seen him yesterday and they come back, where did I see you? Because of the number of patients who are coming in and out of the hospital. So when we talk of healthcare now, what are millennials now doing to medicine? I got this article and it says millennials are disrupting medicine by using texting rather than a phone call. Walking down the hall is efficient and effective by a younger individual, but may be interpreted as distant, lazy, or aloof by someone not accustomed to this form of communication. So the first time I was able to get a message outside of the hospital was by using guess what? Walkie-talkie. And because of that, I had to take an exam in the National Telecommunication System. We all had to take an exam because we had to use the walkie-talkie. So we had our identification. And it was funny, I did not have a blood gas. My friend in Baguio, which is 1 hour away, had a blood gas. So if I had a patient who I wanted to monitor, I'd get the sample by myself, put it in ice, send it, and he would walkie-talkie me the result. Even long-distance phones were not that stable. But now, you can Viber. I'm in Indonesia, my family is in Manila, one is in the US, and you do Viber. So quick. That is the millennial age. But I can Viber. Okay? Because we are allowed to get pictures, images of our patients when we are on the road. But because of Privacy Act now in my country, this is very tricky. We cannot actually send figures, pictures, or anything in social media and in any way expose the patient to other than what we see in the hospital. So you may not agree with this, but I will agree that when I am teaching in the college where I am, the first thing I do is everybody put your cell phone in the back. Because I don't want them looking at their gadgets. So I forgot they had iPads. Okay, so doctor, you said cell phone. Okay, anything electronic, put in the back. Okay, because if you don't listen to me, you'll get 60% mistaken in your exam. So it's really hard to fight the digital age. So what is it when we say innovation? So I felt the topic assigned to me was innovation in healthcare. So the meaning of innovation is a noun. It's any change, alteration, or a new method, an idea, a product. So it's a creation, development, and implementation of a new product, a process, or service with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or competitive advantage. And that's what we're trying to discover. So in healthcare, when we say it's an innovation, it always involves the social issue. So social innovation encourages new approaches to tackle issues of poverty, education, health, and other human development problems by making system-level changes. And that's what you, the millennials, are confronted with, because the population has boomed to 100 million in my country when it was only maybe less than 10 million when I was a child. And so you have to deal with a lot of these social issues. So the WHO explains that health innovation improves the efficiency, effectiveness, quality, sustainability, safety and or affordability of healthcare. I'm a private physician. I studied and took my residency training in a government institution. And true, we are encountering a lot of poor patients who go to the Philippine General Hospital because it's supposed to seat of learning and training in my country. So when we talk of effectiveness, so you may have something, but it doesn't translate to making your patient well. It may be efficacious, the drug, but it does not cure the patient, so that's not an effective type of approach. Sustainability. I hear that a lot when I'm with the DOH, Department of Health. So sustainability, they all talk about enablers, following up. So I don't understand, but through the years, since 1994, when I was working for tuberculosis with the Department of Health, I have already now gotten the lingo of sustainability, millennium goals, etc., etc. So, in essence, it's a definition that will include new, may improve health policies. So we're talking about health policies, practices, system, products, and technology. So here you are more familiar with technology, and I will show you some of the technology that has been imbibed into our healthcare system. Not all, because there are so many of them, and 1 hour will not be enough. Okay, I have to stay here one more day to teach you that. But then, my students there will probably be better in teaching you some of these things eventually. So, this morning, Professor Martin Tobin was talking about consensus and bottom-up and top-down health services. So, I think what he was trying to emphasize is medicine is still a science. So we are at the core of our healthcare delivery. We should not allow our politicians to tell us how we will deliver our healthcare. That's what's happening in a lot of our healthcare systems. While the target of the government is to deliver universal healthcare, it limits the manner by which we physicians will be able to deliver the proper health care to our patients, because they're limiting us to this kind of diagnostic tests, the medications that we can give, and because we're following, in my country, a law that was instituted in 1950s, the Medical Act. It has not been changed, and so we are ordered to use generics, which we don't know where they came from. So a lot of the policies are supposed to be new, but will they improve our healthcare delivery? So the components are, it should be novel, it can be applied, and the intended benefit should be the majority. So when the intended benefit is centered around the receiver of care, who is the patient, the stakeholder considerations should also be considered. So the stakeholders are those who support these various innovations. So in my country, we have a lot of NGOs, missions giving support to a lot of our, so what happened? What happened? I don't know. So, can you? I don't know. So, the innovations in the context that you want me to explain may be this manner, but then I want to show you the difference between innovation and invention later on. I will be showing you some of the innovations that we have had. Why am I here in Indonesia? My friend at the back, Dr. Pramita. we started going to meetings for the GINA, guidelines for asthma education. So we met in meetings, and the guidelines by the GINA focused on a lot of things, stepwise approach, and what is important there is the education of the patients. So while we have patients who may not know why they are sick, how they became to be sick, in asthma, an educated patient will know how to address the asthma when they start having an attack, and they will be able to choose which of the inhalers they will be using as a rescue or as a controller. So this is a strategy of bringing down asthma deaths, asthma mortality in our country. So this is an innovation because if in private practice, each doctor had only is not aware that there are two kinds of inhalers because they only give relief. They don't know that inflammation is the main problem in asthma. Then they will just be giving relief, rescue, but eventually, when the patient has a severe type of asthma, mortality is increased. So these are the reasons for organizations like this, Respina. I have my college of chest physicians, because we bring together minds, science-based, and we search for the reasons for recommending this kind of a healthcare approach to lessen, in general, in the population, the mortality of a certain disease. So, what about other innovations? So, for tuberculosis, since this is our case here, the child was subjected to a mantle test, which was negative, their sputum were negative. So what do we have now in our midst? And that's the reason why Arlena and I are very active in tuberculosis, is the new rapid diagnostic test to identify Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which now can be obtained in 2 hours. So with the expert MTB RIF, you can identify in a sputum smear negative patient one who is positive. So this new diagnostic test, rapid enough to be seen, to have a good result within 2 hours, can now hasten the diagnosis. And if the patient is sputum negative, we now have another test that we can perform so that you will have the proof or the evidence to bring her, to give her the anti-TB medications. Now, without this, in the past, what we did was inductively, after the patient has been given 2 rounds of antibiotic, the patient can be given a clinical trial of anti-TB treatment for 2 weeks. Because we all know that giving treatment for TB in 2 weeks, you will already have sputum conversion of your sputum to negative if you're smear positive, and the patient will be clinically well. So if you have a patient with tuberculosis, be sure to monitor, to follow, and you will see that in 95% of patients with pulmonary TB, their cough will be getting better, except for those with big cavities and who are hemoptysizing. It's probably going to take a while, and maybe cough will be the last thing that will disappear. So, in organizations like this, we come together so that we can have communication with our physicians who are not in the city, who are in the rural areas, who do not have spirometry, who do not have X-ray, who do not have any diagnostic test to give them basis for giving anti-TB. Because if you are a patient who is given anti-TB and you're smear negative, I will be mad. In fact, a lot of the patients who are given anti-TB and they're smear negative come to me and say, I'm smear negative, why am I having anti-TB drugs? So we have to explain to them that your tuberculosis is extrapulmonary, You have hepatic TB, you have bone TB, you have other TB other than in the lungs. And can this happen? Yes. You can have tuberculosis endobronchially, and the only symptom that you will have is hemoptysis. We have no power yet? It's okay. So, so it's my power. So observation, trialability. So what do we mean by stakeholders? These are the sponsors for your activities. And innovation must be something truly new, significantly different, and applicable to the healthcare. And even if the criteria are met, there will certainly be barriers. So we have to collaborate, communicate, and exchange. And that's why we have this Asia Pacific conferences so that we can share best practices and maybe learn so that we can go through these barriers. Okay? So in my country now, we have a national TB law. It was actually signed last 2 years ago. We are starting the implementation this September, I believe, and we are now in the process of getting all the physicians to register because it is now a mandatory TB notification. So we were asked to register online. Okay, I registered twice, thrice, I'm still not registered. So there are 2 electronic platforms. So I said, why did we just write it down? It would have been simpler. But they want a registration, or you can have a web app. So this is technology for the millennials, but not for baby boomers like me. So I was telling you about the diagnostic test other than the MTB. You have your quantiferon, and the WHO actually included in their diagnostic recommendation is TB lab. It's a manual assay. The only advantage I can see here is children who cannot expectorate, with just a very small amount of sputum, you can actually detect TB. So it's a molecular assay loop MTBC detection kit developed by the Japanese. So these are other technologies that may embrace healthcare. Robotics. Do you have robotic surgery for the prostate? It's still the surgeon who is doing it. The robotic will just help. But they are developing a micro robot for eye operation. This is press eyes for retinal surgery and those caused by genetic defects. So you have virtual reality. So the pharmacy chain Apotec provides its customer with a virtual reality to alleviate pain and discomfort. So they give you videos of beautiful places so that you will not feel the pain. But we also use virtual reality also for monitoring the patients who have a mobile app and they are showing that they are ingesting the TB medications. So automation, these are handheld devices, okay, like a Star Trek, and so you can make a diagnosis even without going to the physician. And I think this is very common already, the dentists and drones. In the last APRC, somebody presented how they use drones to deliver drugs and other important documents. So do you know the most important invention? So is innovation the same as invention? No. So the most important ones are the thermometer, stethoscope, X-ray, antibiotic, hypodermic needles, spectacles, cardiac pacemaker, and CT scan. And so also prosthesis and defibrillator. So this is invention, okay? Starting from the 15th century. So with innovation, that stethoscope can now become a. So your ICU can very well look like this. Did you see the patient? Amidst all of those machines, there is a patient there. There is a patient. Okay? So whenever I have a patient who has 2 lines, 5 bottles, oh, we have a Christmas tree again. That is not good. And I remember my chairman telling me, if you are giving more than 10 or at least 10 medications to your patient, you have to think twice. You're not doing good medicine. And I've kept that in mind. So I always number my drugs. If it is more than 10, what am I doing wrong? You have to look into your training again. So here, we're now talking about artificial intelligence. And this is the last part of my talk. So, probably you know what artificial intelligence is all about. It's an automated thing. It will take charge of your task. So the artificial intelligence may be good for us because it will free up the medical professionals to finally fulfill the mission they're signed up for, which is to help the person and get well. So they have more time for compassion, creativity, because in 2 hours, you know, this is TB, you start the TB, so instead of waiting for 2 weeks to have that sputum exam done, you now, in 2 weeks, before the 2 weeks, you already have a patient who is very well. So, talking about algorithms again. So, you're using a complex algorithm, software, to estimate human cognition in the analysis of complicated medical data. But you have a wealth of data in front of you. So specifically, AI is the ability for the computer algorithm to approximately rule out, which we did before, and maybe without a direct, and this is done without a direct human input. So, is the art of medicine gone if we use artificial intelligence? The art of medicine is a creative process of understanding the uniqueness of every patient and tailoring the treatment according to the needs of the patient, as well as method of processing, inputting information, finding the right response, and so this will disappear with the new technology. So will it disappear? Maybe we have to look at this. There is no reason to believe that artificial intelligence would turn the very core of medicine, which is the art of healing, into a machine-like clockwork. You still need a human person to evaluate you or to touch you. So one of the things that probably has helped a lot is the diagnosis of breast cancer metastases. And they have really saved a lot of our breast cancer patients and so many other carcinomas. So we are now in the era of artificial intelligence. And now they're saying, at least this author is saying, it is the real art of medicine. So artificial intelligence is the new stethoscope of the 21st century. So we are saying that this article is saying the real art of medicine will be to figure out the logical path of how AI arrived at a certain solution. So problem solving by the robot, by artificial intelligence, maybe because of what you also input. So there is still somebody who is inputting here. So the real art of medicine begins with the era of artificial intelligence. So what are the applications of AI? So detecting cancer or strokes, CT scan. You have your risk of silent cardiac death, ECG, and cardiac MRI imaging. Classifying skin lesions, and diabetic retinopathy. So all of these are examples of artificial intelligence. So it can help us develop drugs faster, and analytical processes are hastened. and more efficient. So this has the potential to shave off a lot of years of work, especially in drug development. We know it takes 20 years, but now we can hasten it up with artificial intelligence. Personalized treatment. So machine learning can automate the complicated statistical work and help discover which characteristic indicate that the patient is doing better here and what particular response will be given to a particular treatment. So our markers for a tumor, for embolism, all of this, DVT, so these are going to be also helped with the machines. So these are point of care tests. So the systems by cross-referencing, so genetics also. So can artificial intelligence score better in heart images than humans? Maybe I don't think so, because I have my clinical experience and I can diagnose a heart condition even without the echo, because that was what I was trained for. So William Oster said that the philosophies of one age have become the absurdities of the next. So whenever I talk with my son, who is training to be ENT, that was your time, Mom. My time now does this. So our time is gone? I don't know. But then the foolishness of yesterday has become the wisdom of tomorrow because they have learned. So is the art of medicine threatened? So as healthcare becomes more complex, technological and data-driven, there's a risk physicians will really lose some of their autonomy. So we have to accept the practice of medicine is both an art and a science. Different patients react differently to the same medication for the treatment of anxiety. So you will be surprised, there are some asthmatics who cannot take an MDI because they're allergic to the Freon. So you need to give them a DPI. So you can only do this if you demonstrate to the patient. So it can be a trial and error process, okay? Looking for the correct medication. This is very important. Every patient is unique. The art of medicine is the component of the practice that addresses such uniqueness and compassion and care. So, will artificial intelligence change all of this? I have my doubts. So medicine is not an art like painting. It is a science like physics. It's applied, okay? So no robot could perform what a person can do. And the application of science to the patient will always need a human component. So the last term that you asked me to discuss is competition. How will millennials and innovation work for competition? Competition among healthcare providers can be helpful, but it can also be harmful. So this is where you are now grouped as a healthcare provider versus something. So you're trying to beat each other for the number of patients. So these are, in my country, the HMOs. So we have to deal them. But competition should just be an instrument, not the goal. It is for you to get better, to be better when you're delivering your health care. So provider competition is good, but the patient still has the choice. You cannot tell the patient, like me, I don't accept HMOs. So I have patients who come to me, even if they have HMOs, because they want to be seen by one who can diagnose. Now, no bragging rights. But 34 years versus a pulmonologist who is in practice for 2 years. While I'm talking to the patient, I already know what the patient is sick of. And the patient had gone through CT scans twice, chest x-rays 4 times, and when I see the patient, I'm sorry, you have tuberculosis. It was never considered by the young physician because he has never seen that kind of a tuberculosis. Similar to my first case. They never thought of TB, they only thought of pneumonia. So it really matters. So the landscape now in medicine is practice such that it may be, sadly, most of them and their teachers are totally oblivious to the situation. So the corporatization of medicine dictates the type of delivery care that we deliver. That's why I don't accept HMOs, because I think the patients are just being used. So I said, if you have an HMO, I'll ask for all the labs, but you can not pay me. If you don't have money, you don't need to pay me, because they need you and your expertise. Okay? So it's now become a joyless practice of medicine, devoid of medicine's artistry, and burgeoning with frustrated physicians who are chasing their dream. You wanted to be a doctor, but you cannot fulfill your oath because you have to do this based on the corporate guidelines. So we're dealing with a lot of physician burnout. In the College of Medicine, we had suicides after a year or two because of burnout. So this is what we have to take care of. The millennials, you may have everything in your hand, but you have to be careful. Too much information. Too quick, the data might not be the right way to treat your patient. So doctors who want shift work, clerks saying we don't want to go 24/7 for every other day, that's not acceptable during my time because we only had 100. So the relationship within arm's length, my patient says, doctor, when I see my doctor, he's in the door and I'm here in the bed because she's hypnotizing. Why will you be a physician when you cannot face the patient this way? So in today's world of medicine, okay, we are always judged in the eyes of everyone that we see. But we have settled for this. So bedside manners has been gone. So this is very important. So you see, this is the old way and this is the new way. So why? Because we have to report electronic medical records. So, and then the resident goes in front of the iPad and then starts scanning, but not talking to the patient. So remember, Osler said, listen to the patient. So these are the bedside rounds in the past. Okay, you see Professor Tobin give you a lot of pictures like this, and this is how we should be to our patient, talking. And we miss these bedside rounds where our consultants are actually demonstrating the way to do proper examination. Why do I say those? Because I had a residency training program, and I will tell my residents, okay, I'll be there 7:30, they come at 9. So okay, you're busy. I come at 4, they leave at 3. Do they really want to become doctors, or they would just want to be doctor for the title? It's very different. You don't know everything. So it's a reality that you have to get our opinion. I'm happy this was our visit the other day in Palembang. So I was able, and I'm glad they showed me some of their cases. So we need to review all of this. So you cannot make a diagnosis without correlating. But this is now what I see in a lot of my younger consultants. So the patient is there standing in the white coat, never touching the patient at all. This should not be done. So we should restore the art of medicine. So there are only two sorts of doctors: those who practice with their brains and those who practice with their tongue. Unfortunately, those who practice with their tongue have more patients because they advertise, they talk, they tell you, and they look like they're knowledgeable. But in essence, they're probably not the best physician for you. So the person who takes medicine must recover twice, once from the disease and once from the medicine. I can tell you, I see patients being managed by my young consultants, 2 pages of drugs. Why? So 4 anti-angina meds, 3 diuretics. I cannot understand. So Osler, like the technophobe and iPad enthusiast of today, eagerly embrace scientific medicine, which is the new hope for tomorrow. So medicine no longer becomes a living for a great physician, but rather a way of living. It's not the Louis Vuitton that you buy with your PF, not the number of cars, but the lives that you have saved, which is important. So communication, let's talk. One of the first duties of the physician is to educate the masses not to take medicine. Why? You're supposed to give drugs. So you remember in the past, Osler, Hippocrates, medicine was still experimental. So a lot of them actually did not get well with the medicine. In fact, if you look at your patients, a lot of them get well regardless of what you give. Because it's a natural course of the disease. It's knowing the disease itself that's more important. You know that flu in 3 to 5 days will get better unless it's complicated. So again, I'd like to thank the physicians there for allowing me to visit the MDR-TB clinic because we want to see how you are addressing this. So talking about the patients and trying to find a way to get lives better is part of a physician's mandate. So we have to be strong advocates. So Dr. Elena is one of the officers of the union, which we are part of. That's for TB. This is a TB patient, and they have a group which they call TB Heal. And these are advocacies in Malaysia. These are our pamphlets, and that's what Oscar said. So we also have guidelines, but these are guidelines mainly to assist those who are not updated because changes in the medication, especially for TB, which we want to control in the next 10 years, is quite rapid. So we have in my province a TB caravan because this is one-stop shop. In a caravan, we do a sputum smear, we do the x-ray, we evaluate, and before the hour is gone, the patient has the medicines. So this is bringing to the patient what we do in the DOTS strategy. We have a mobile x-ray, which we bring to the patient, and we can already read it. And to destigmatize TB, we have cough center. So this is a center where we can do DOTS treatment and check up for other lung diseases. So we go back to Osler. The practice of medicine is an art based on science. It's not the alternative medicine that is now becoming popular in my country. So it changes, and we may have better techniques for diagnosis, improved therapies, especially for carcinoma. But the art of medicine remains constant over the millennia because human nature is unchanging. So there's always the human factor. So the patient comes to us, afraid, anxious, and sometimes they self-pity. And it's always been the doctor's responsibility to calm their fears and provide hope. The robot cannot do this unless you have RoboCop, which is Hollywood. So the accomplished doctor has bedside manner that is humane and compassionate, empathic, and supportive. So, my last case, very quick. I never expected to find TB in a 95-year-old in my country. So, but she's AFP positive. So now, I don't believe she has TB, but I have to admit, she was 3+, and her x-ray showed this lesion and biliary infiltrates. She was recently diagnosed to have diabetes mellitus. So that is the risk factor. So now we're dealing with diabetes and tuberculosis. And in our country, in my province, we have a lot of old folks. And we have to look at TB in older adults. So this is where the robot will not probably make any way of diagnosing. You have to look at the patient. So recognition is the first step. So older adults provide society's carers, community leaders and mentors, and they also take care of the young. So this is why we have patients who come to us because they're afraid their grandchildren will have tuberculosis. These are two of my MDR TB patients. This guy I treated 10 years ago, but he did not complete 3 months, so he came back with bronchiectasis and a cavity. So he completed treatment. We should be patient-centered in our approach to treatment. And at the end of the day, the secret of the care of the patient is in caring for the patient. Last slide. Before I was preparing this, I searched a lot of books. And I came across this book. You might be interested in it because it's very good. How Artificial Intelligence Can Make Healthcare Human Again. It's deep medicine. There's a lot of learnings here. But what he's saying is while we have artificial intelligence, you should not forget the healing is still humane. So you have to catch your patients. So listen to your patient. Oster said he introduced the concept of clinical clerkship, residency. He pioneered the program in Johns Hopkins. He asked for no other epitaph in his death, and that he taught medical students in the wards. Something is considered his most useful and important work. It's not the richness that he had, but he was able to teach medical students. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be part of your Studium Generale. I am so touched and I really find it an honor. So my last few slides, I'd like to thank the students in Palembang. I had to immerse. You have to know TB if you want to be an advocate. This is my regionalization program. We do have a program in the university where students immerse in the community. So this is my MDR TB clinic. I made sure they were exposed to the smear negative. In my country now, we have an epidemic of dengue. And one of the things that my first travel here in Indonesia was for the vaccination strategy. Dengue vaccination is important. There will be anti-vaxxers everywhere in the world, but we as healthcare physicians know that vaccination is important. Let us not be dictated by politicians. Let us use our strength in medicine. So, thank you very much for being here this afternoon.